A woman stands on the shore of the Arctic Ocean with a bucket at her feet. Inside is fresh urine. I know it sounds super gross. She lifts a handful of the liquid and gently soaks it into her greasy hair, massaging out the oils and dirt. This was a common cleansing practice performed among Inuits back in the day. She pats her hair dry with the woven cloth until the cloth is now dampened. She begins to slowly walk along the water's edge, but suddenly a swift gust of wind catches her off guard, whipping the cloth from her grasp, and she loses it to the ocean waves. Deep on the ocean floor, where barely any light penetrates, Sedna, the great Inuit sea goddess, picks up the cloth and weaves her power into the fabric, birthing Skalusuak, the very first Greenland shark. It must be an honor to be integrated into indigenous lore, as it stands as a testament to the animal's ecological significance and its vital role in the tribe's culture. Although the Greenland shark has long been known to the Inuit people, only in recent years have modern scientists begun to unravel the mysteries of its remarkable biology. What does it eat? How does it reproduce? And why on earth does it smell like pee? And so in this video, I'll be covering all you need to know about the Greenland shark. As its name implies, the Greenland shark is most at home in the cold waters around Greenland, roaming the Arctic and the northern portion of the Atlantic Oceans. Yet, in 2022, researchers on a Florida International University vessel were tagging tiger sharks off the coast of Belize, and they made an unusual discovery: a Greenland shark, some 4,100 miles south of its typical stomping grounds. Respecting the animal's safety, the team quickly recorded its measurements, and then they kind of sawed off on this opportunistic mission to see whether more might be found, but no such luck. Given the shark's affinity for the cold, this shark likely ventured south by sticking to the ocean's deeper, colder depths, and it was concluded that this was just some one-off observation of a Greenland shark that was just undoubtedly lost. In the waters up in the Arctic, they tend to swim at about 1,200 meters, but they have been documented at depths of 800 to 2,900 meters. While they can and do swim near the surface, those deeper depths tend to be their preference. At those depths, light cannot penetrate, so Greenland sharks swim sluggishly at 2 miles per hour in the dark. It's able to see in the dark with these sensory pores called Ampullae Lorenzini. All sharks have Ampullae Lorenzini, and they are found around the nose and mouth of shark species. They kind of look like little blackheads and primarily assist in hunting for prey. The pores are filled with jelly that is capable of detecting electrical fields. The bottom of these pores have cilia, which are hair-like structures that sense movement. The cilia respond to the electrical fields that the jelly senses, and then signals are sent back to the shark to identify where the electrical signal is coming from. All living things give off these tiny electrical signals, and those signals are emitted from muscle movements, including beating hearts. Given that electrical fields dissipate fairly quickly in water, the Greenland shark can only detect the electrical fields from fairly short distances. We're talking about 1 meter. Though these sensors typically allow sharks to sense prey that are effectively hiding, so we're talking about they're either blending in with the rocks or they're hiding under sand, the depths at which the Greenland shark exists at are usually considered open ocean. So really they have to practically bump into their prey to acquire a meal. But make no mistake, this animal is a perplexing predator. Studies have investigated the stomach contents of Greenland sharks, and those studies have revealed that they eat cod, squid, whales, and seals. These animals are fast, so how the heck can the Greenland shark, something that only tops speeds of 2 miles per hour, even catch prey that are capable of clocking speeds of 14 miles per hour? We still don't really know the answer to this, but scientists have some ideas. Researchers have spoken to people of the Inuit tribe, and they have said the sharks catch their prey off guard, ambush style. So for example, seals are at risk of predation both on land and in the sea, with polar bears being the biggest threat on land. So seals typically opt to sleep in the water instead. Under these circumstances, a Greenland shark can easily acquire a vulnerable sleeping seal as its prey. Or perhaps they take advantage of animals that are already severely injured, where they just simply can't outswim the sluggish speeds of a Greenland shark. Or do they not actively hunt at all, and instead they are scavengers, eating the flesh of already deceased animals? So While it's still anyone's guess, it's likely that they get their food from either one or all three of those tactics. The studies that have looked at their stomach contents have noted that Greenland sharks have a signature bite mark, one that is almost completely circular. These signature bites aren't just found in their stomachs either. Some beluga whales have been observed with similar circular bite marks on them as well. So this suggests that the Greenland sharks may get in scuffles and or attempts to actively pursue their prey, but it's still, again, a bit of a mystery. Regardless, their teeth are one of the reasons why Inuit people respect this animal so much. Inuits would use their teeth as shears to cut their hair, and their skin to create anti-slip soles. Even early sailors learned from the Inuits and placed the shark's dried skin underneath their boots. Ah yes, it is here where the safety officer was born. Most predators rely on their eyesight to track and capture prey, but Greenland sharks roam in the deep, dark waters where light doesn't penetrate. And even when they swim in the shallower depths where light does penetrate, their vision doesn't really matter at all because they're basically blind. Now, at this point, I have shown you several pictures and videos of Greenland sharks, and maybe you've noticed that there's this thing that's dangling from their eye. That is a parasitic copepod, and it's not tiny either. It's about 3 centimeters long, and it infects the Greenland shark and its closest relative, the Pacific sleeper shark. Interestingly, this copepod is always a female. She anchors herself to the cornea of the shark's eye, feeding off eye tissue as she develops her egg sacs. Over time, this damages the shark's eye, often leading to that opaque look that you see in the pictures and the videos that I'm showing. And that ultimately impairs their vision, though they are able to detect some light. So while this lady copepod is sucking on the eye juices, remaining firmly attached to the shark's eye, the female carries her egg sacs from behind. The eggs hatch while she is still anchored, and the free-swimming larvae disperse into the water. Now, this allows the copepod species to maintain a wider distribution. And this parasitic relationship is very ingrained in the Greenland shark copepod ecology, though it is more prominent in sharks that inhabit the colder waters associated with the Arctic Ocean. One study surveyed Greenland sharks from the northern part of the Arctic Ocean and then also near the St. Lawrence estuary. Nearly 98% of the sharks surveyed in the Arctic Ocean had copepods parasitizing their eyes, but the sharks surveyed near the St. Lawrence estuary were practically parasite-free. Now, this could be due to possibly the copepod's preference to colder water and or its distribution does not overlap with the Greenland shark's southernmost distribution, but that part really isn't understood yet. Now, I've had my cornea scratched before and it hurts like a motherfucker. I remember it caused a lot of tearing and there was this pulse of pain that would shoot to the back of my eye. And the only way that I could really tolerate the pain was to close it. And to let it heal, I had to wear an eye patch for a couple of weeks. So I do feel for the sharks, as this is probably not a painless process. And scientists have observed Greenland sharks rubbing their eyes up against rocks, likely as an attempt to dislodge the copepod. But you know what? Eventually the copepod does so much damage to the nerves in the eyes that at a certain point, the shark just can't feel the copepod anymore, so that really freaking sucks. And then the Greenland shark proceeds to live for hundreds of years with this parasite. The Greenland shark is the longest living vertebrate on the planet, but how do we know that it lives that long? The Greenland shark is kind of elusive and difficult to study due to the depths and temperatures they are found in. Well, in 1936, a Greenland shark was caught off the coast of Greenland. It was tagged and then it was released. 16 years later, it was caught again, and it grew about 2.8 meters in length. Now, this is considered pretty slow, but based on this observation, scientists began to do the math. If Greenland shark's average is about 6 to 7 meters in length and it grows less than 1/4 of a meter a year, that means a fully grown Greenland shark could be centuries old. We could use this example to get growth rate estimates, but you never really know if other factors influence the animal's growth. So these estimates need to be fact-checked with something that was more tangible using more sophisticated analyses. Normally, you age fish by counting how many rings form on their ear bones. And this is a process that is very similar to aging a tree based on the rings in a trunk. But sharks do not have true bony structures. They are cartilaginous. Some sharks and rays may have calcified structures like fin spines, so you could count the layers there, but the Greenland shark doesn't have any of those at all. They are completely soft sharks. So one study set out to age the Greenland shark by analyzing their eyes. The center of the shark's eye lens, specifically the nucleus, is composed of metabolically inactive tissue, and thus it doesn't change throughout the organism's life. So theoretically, you could carbon date the eye lens to determine its age using C14. C14 is also naturally occurring, and atmospheric C14 can be used as a marker to verify the age of the eye lens nucleus. So during the 1950s and the 1960s, humans introduced quite a bit more C14 into the atmosphere due to that period in time when we were testing a whole bunch of nuclear bombs. Using this as a reference point, younger sharks, so those that are born after the bomb testing, would have more C14 in their lens nuclei. And then the older sharks, presumably those born before the bomb testing, would have less C14. So sure enough, in this study, the sharks that were the smallest had more C14 in their eyeballs, where the larger and thus older sharks contained older C14. With that information, the scientists used this sophisticated statistical analysis where they were able to estimate the shark's age. And through this, they estimated that the largest shark that they had caught and measured was likely 272 years old. Further, the study determined that they do not become sexually mature until they are about 150 years old. Now, sharks can reproduce through a number of ways. They could go ahead and lay eggs and deposit them in a safe place. And I do just want to say, those eggs land up washing up on beaches quite frequently. And if you don't know what shark eggs look like, you'd probably think that they were just like kelp that was washing up on the beach. So this is what some shark eggs look like. They're also referred to as mermaid purses. They can also give birth to live young, or they do this hybrid method called ovoviviparity. This is where eggs hatch inside the shark, and then the baby sharks develop further, relying on some kind of yolk sac until they're ready to be born. So they are born via live birth at that point. While we do not know how baby Greenland sharks develop, female sharks probably do not lay eggs. In 1957, there is one observation that was noted about a female Greenland shark that had 10 fully developed pups in her womb. But there were no details that suggested it was one or the other. So while we don't really understand or know that piece of the equation yet, scientists do believe that female Greenland sharks will give birth to pups that are kind of in batches. And they believe that the 10 pups that were in that Greenland shark that they found were the last batch of pups the female was giving birth to. So they think this female gave birth to more pups before it was actually caught. In fact, scientists believe that Greenland sharks hold the record for the greatest number of pups per batch for a shark species. They believe this is the case because Greenland sharks are still pretty common, despite it being subjected to bycatch, being eaten by humans, and then not giving birth until they are over 150 years old. Now, one way we're uncovering information about their longevity and ecological role is by studying their metabolic rate. Metabolic processes are in charge of breaking down complex molecules that your body turns into energy. That energy is then used to build or repair tissues. Over time, most animals experience a decrease in their metabolism, and thus the body starts to slow down. You might start to see that you're gaining weight a little bit more, things like that. But one study from 2016 took samples from 23 Greenland shark mussels, and they measured the activities of 5 different enzymes associated with metabolic processes to calculate their metabolic rates. Despite the typical trends of seeing decreases in metabolic rates with age, scientists didn't see that at all in the Greenland sharks. Their metabolic rates were about the same for all specimens, meaning Greenland sharks have metabolic rates that remain relatively constant throughout their life. That means their bodies are just as effective at fighting off infections or repairing cells, whether they're 15 years old or 300 years old. However, their metabolism was impacted in a way that is pretty typical across the board for animals. Metabolic rates typically increase as a function of temperature. So your metabolic rate will increase as you are exposed to increasing temperatures. Scientists noticed increased enzyme activity when the samples were subjected to increased temperatures. A more recent study from 2020 caught 4 Greenland sharks and placed them in tanks for field respirometry studies. Here, they measured the specimen's oxygen consumption rates to estimate their resting and active metabolic rates. The study found that while the Greenland shark has very low energetic needs, their metabolic rates were similar across other shark species when scaled for body mass size and temperature. This means that Greenland sharks are not metabolically adapted to the cold. However, based on their low energetic needs, the study suggests that they could go long periods without feeding. One example the paper provides is, with the metabolic rate they estimated, a Greenland shark weighing about 126 kilograms may only require 122 kilocalories per day. Assuming Greenland sharks can store energy in their tissues and through undigested food, consuming a seal weighing 25 kilograms means that the shark may not have to worry about another meal for about a year. Since the global temperatures are increasing as a result of climate change, this has some implications for the Greenland shark, specifically related to its longevity, sexual maturity, ecological niche, and conservation status. While the Greenland shark is elusive and still has many mysteries about its life, scientists have unraveled one thing about the Greenland shark. Why does it smell like piss, and why is it so toxic? Now, we often think of Greenland sharks as mostly hanging out in, the deep sea, but they do swim up to the surface, often with ease. Most fish have swim bladders, which are these sacs that fill up with air when a fish wants to move closer to the surface and then deflates when they want to go a little bit deeper. Fish with swim bladders can die if they are brought up to the surface faster than their swim bladders can adjust. But sharks do not have this organ. Instead, they have fatty livers that allow them to cover great vertical distance more efficiently. But that isn't enough for the Greenland shark to withstand the pressures of the deep sea. The high pressures of the deep can cause proteins to destabilize, and that would be catastrophic on a cellular level. A lot of deep sea animals have evolved soft tissues, but others have developed chemicals that prevent proteins from destabilizing. These chemicals are known as osmolytes, and the Greenland shark produces one that's called trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO. It acts like a shield outside of the cell and protects it from destabilizing effects of the pressures and immensely cold temperatures. The more TMAO, the more pressure and cold the animal can withstand. So the Greenland shark has among some of the highest levels of TMAO on record. TMAO is also what makes the Greenland shark so poisonous. Since salt levels in marine environments are higher than what is typically found in marine animals, like sharks, they have to take in water and excrete salt constantly, and that's all in an attempt to be in equilibrium with the environment. Water and dissolved salt pass through the shark's body through osmosis. Now, proteins and TMAO can also pass through, but these molecules are too large to pass through the channels that govern salt balances. So in order to maintain a stable amount of water in its body, basically keeping the shark hydrated, Greenland sharks retain a high concentration of urea in its blood. This compensates for lower salt concentrations that it has in its body, but high levels of urea can destabilize proteins, so the Greenland shark has to counter that by producing even more TMAO. This is why the Greenland shark is so toxic and smells like pee. And for some reason, people are eating them and calling it a delicacy. Eating the flesh can cause neurological effects that are similar to being drunk, but instead of merriment, you feel intestinal discomfort, or death if you wind up eating too much. People brave enough to try this delicacy have said that its texture is like that of a sponge, and yes, it tastes like piss and ammonia. Yummy. In order to safely eat it, you have to process the shit out of it. It has to be fermented and then dried to break down the TMAO, a process that takes about 7 to 10 months. Yeah, months. It's common enough that you could find little nuggets of Greenland sharks in the tourist spots in Iceland. That's going to do it for today, folks. My name is Heather, and I like to talk about animals and other environmental stuff on this channel. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more from me, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!